Hi, today I'd like to talk about the concept of layers in graphic design. So, some people get intimidated by programs like Photoshop or any of the other Adobes like InDesign or Illustrator or in Affinity, Publisher, Designer, or Photo, any of those things, because they see these layers menus and it gets a little bit confusing. And they think that something like PowerPoint or Canva is simpler. However, I want to kind of go over the concept of layers and show you that in PowerPoint and in Canva, you still have layers. And that's going to segue into my next video, which is about flattening. So you'll want to stay tuned for that if you want to know more about what flattened means. But today, let's talk about layers. So I'm going to go through a couple different pieces of software so that we can look at it in different software and see how they're really all just the same thing. So a layer is kind of like building a sandwich. And if this is your screen, it's kind of building the sandwich out towards you. So in this particular layout, I'm going to just turn some things off and on. I have a white background layer. And then on top of that, I have my green watercolor splotch. The next thing closest to me is breathe. And then the next thing in the stack I've got this grouped is my little star symbol. And so each of these is a layer. And what you can do with this, if you are in Photoshop, is you can rearrange these things. So I could take this and I could put it all the way to the back, and now it is hidden. And I can move it one up, I can move it all the way to the top. Now, that didn't really look any different, that last move, because my star is off to the side, even though I moved my text on top of my star. Because they're not overlapping, it doesn't look like anything happened. So if I took the words here and then moved them under the star, then you would see that the star overlaps them now. So let's just back up and undo that here. So, what you may be familiar with is arranging things from front to back. And in Photoshop, you would find that when you are on this move tool under layer and arrange and send backwards. So now the layer breathe went backwards one. And I can go back to that and I can send it all the way to the back. And it fell into a group, so that's why I didn't go all the way back. But I can put it all the way to the back, and then let's use those functions to bring it forward. So layer, bring to front. All right, so let's get rid of Photoshop and let's look at Affinity Publisher. So I tried to make something kind of similar in each of these. So here's our layers window in Publisher. So on this one, I have a watercolor layer. I didn't make a separate white background because I didn't start with a transparent background. I have my star layer and I have my text layer. And again, I can take this and just drag it around. So now you can see that the watercolor, if I zoom in, has fallen behind the splotch. And I can also use these little shortcuts up here in the arrange area to just bring it back to the front. Or again, move it back one, move it to the all the way to the back, etc. And you can also find those same things under layer arrange, just like we did in Photoshop. So it's really not that difficult because I think most of us who use PowerPoint or Canva are familiar with the concept of arranging things to the back or the front. We just maybe don't think about them as layers so much. And so when we see these windows here, it's really just one more way to kind of quickly order things in terms of what is on the bottom, what is on the top, and what is on the very top. So this is like a stack. So the bottom layer here is the thing that is furthest away from you as you look at the screen. And the thing that is on top here is what would be closest to you. So again, you can think of it a little bit as a sandwich that's built out towards you from the screen. And the other thing is, of course, that anything that is opaque is going to block out what's under it. So if we move the star on top of our text, Now it is blocking it because the star is opaque. But the other thing you can do with layers is you can adjust the opacity. Now I didn't show you this in Photoshop, but the same thing is possible. So now you can kind of see the letters through the star because we adjusted the opacity of that layer and made it a little bit more transparent. All right, so let's go into PowerPoint next. And this was the best I could do using the highlighter and some shapes to come up with something similar. So here is our text, and you can see as I click on all these different parts, they get selected. And so each time something gets selected with a box around it, I've got two pieces here. Each time you select something, just by clicking on it, it puts a bounding box around it. That's what these things are called. And each one of those is a layer. Now, what I have never seen in PowerPoint, maybe it's there somewhere, is a way to actually see a menu of those layers like we see in Affinity or in Adobe. But on the Home tab, we still have the Arrange options where we could select, let's say, this back piece of highlighter, and we could bring it all the way to the front. Now you can see, because it's a highlighter, it's kind of transparent already, so it is kind of masking out the breathe and the star, but it's not completely blocking them because this highlighter stroke is not completely opaque. So I can arrange and I can bring them forward one by one. Each time I click bring forward, it goes another layer up, or I can bring it all the way to the front or send it all the way to the back. So let's get this layer here and send it to the back again so that our text is clear. And so likewise, we can also take these and we can go in our format shape options and we can adjust the transparency. Unlike in Affinity or Adobe, this is going the opposite. We're starting at fully opaque at 0% and we are increasing the transparency to 100%. Whereas in Affinity and Adobe, we have an opacity of 100% and we can bring the opacity down to 0%. So it's kind of going in the opposite direction in PowerPoint, but otherwise the effect is still the same. So you can definitely work with layers in PowerPoint, whether it's apparent or not. The thing that's missing is the ability to have a layers menu or window where you can actually physically see what all your layers are and in what order they are. So last but not least, let's go into Canva. And I think by now, if you're a Canva user, you're probably familiar with this. We can go up to position and we can send things backwards and forwards. And if I put this over here and bring it forwards, it is going to block out my text because I have moved it to the top layer. I can also go to the transparency and again, a little bit different way that they're handling it. They're starting at 100 transparency as fully opaque. And as you take the transparency down, it becomes more transparent. So let's go ahead and just move this off to the side again. And so in both Canva and PowerPoint, we have layers where all of our elements are stacked on top of one another. Anything opaque will block out what is underneath it. You can adjust the transparency of each layer. The difference being in Photoshop, we have a layers window where we can actually see a list of our layers and actually move things around and adjust opacity right in this window, which can be a bit of a time saver. And then in Affinity, we have the same thing. We have our layers listed out in order from closest to us to furthest away from us, and we can also change the opacity of any layer. So hopefully that helps to clear up the concept of what a layer is and how they work in four popular softwares. I went through Affinity Publisher and Adobe Photoshop, but if you have Adobe Illustrator or InDesign, layers are the same. And then also in Affinity, any of the three softwares also work in layers and you have this layers window available to you. If you're working in PowerPoint or Canva, you still have layers and you're able to manipulate opacity and the ordering of those layers. You just are missing this piece where it's all kind of listed out for you. Thanks for watching.